la famille.
Oh, hello everybody, how are you? My name is Alice and I am with James and Usama, two amazing guys, and together we're gonna have a conversation. It's open. You can, of course, comment and participate. We're gonna talk about storytelling, startup, entrepreneurship in a post-COVID era or in a still traumatized by COVID era. And right now, the guest that we decided to invite with Usama is a very special guest, and I'd like to introduce him to you. So let me give you... So Usama left, no surprise, it's okay. It's always like that, you know, sometimes when we're live, things happen, but it will come back. So that's perfect for me to introduce you, James, to our audience. Who is James? James is originally from the UK. You graduated of London School of Economics. You lived and worked in New York before moving to Los Angeles. You left California. You're now living temporarily in Brussels, right? For the school year with your wife, Mary, a photographer and art director, and your two children, Leo and Manu. Over the past 2 decades, you've been helping create some of the most compelling narratives for some of the most transformational companies. You've been working directly with Steve Jobs every day over 10 years. You've been constructing the narrative for groundbreaking products like the iPod, iTunes, iPhone, App Stores, and iPad. You founded and you've been the CEO of Apple's global agency of record, Media Art Lab, and then you worked directly with Brian Chesky from Airbnb in building the Trips platform before starting your own company, Founder. FNDR. You partner with Evan Spiegel at Snap for 3 years as an advisor and mentor through the company's growth. You've been building their narrative, culminating in the Real Friends campaign. We're talking about Snapchat, yeah. And today you play the role of the alchemist at Founder. You work with entrepreneurs. You help the next generation of founders of what you call the culture-led business like Glossier, Snap, Airtable, Farfetch, Brex, and many others. You say you love to unlock the genius of founders, and that's cool. So we're going to talk about all of this today with you, James, and with Usama. How are you, Usama? Are you connected, my friend?
I think so. I don't know. Someone put me back in backstage. I don't know why. It's like I got kicked out in backstage. I felt I don't feel
Alex and I
VIP
just
enough.
needed a minute together.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
I feel that. No worry.
Yeah. It was a perfect time to introduce James, actually. Guys, where are you right now?
So me, I'm in
Where
Rome.
are you based?
And James, where are you?
Well, I was in Venice Beach, California 2 weeks ago, but now I'm in Brussels. So all you Parisians are not even here, and I'm kind of here because you guys are supposed to be in Paris. But whatever, you know, came to see you and you left. But no, I'm normally based in California, and then my wife's Belgian, and the kids are in the school here, so we come back and forth. But yeah, we're enjoying it. It's good. Good to be here. We like it.
Okay, cool. And me, for myself, I'm in the West Indies, and I have to say that energy here is really fulfilling. I can breathe. I can go to the restaurant. I can go on the beach and have sun. I'm sorry, I'm not saying that to make you sad at all. I'm just telling you that going back to freedom, you know, like socializing and meeting with other people, it still exists, it's still possible, and we humans need it. And don't forget that, because I know how sad and hard it is to be right now and during the lockdown and this very shitty kind of situation in Europe, especially. All right, let's bring back the good vibes. Now, guys, I would like to tell you something. I'd like to talk about storytelling, okay? Because there is something at the family. So tomorrow, on Tuesday, it's going to be Demo Day. Demo Day, a remote Demo Day. Hundreds of amazing investors are going to attend the pitches of our new batch of startups. And I have to tell you that it's been hard. It's been a real thing, you know, to make our founders build their story. And they all have amazing stories and they all are super experts in their domain, but still, it's a challenge to help them build that story. How do you do, James? How do you help founders find the genius inside?
Well, you know, I think finding a story is a series of making points and illustrating those points. I was joking with you guys earlier on that maybe the perfect storyteller is some part American and some part French, because I think Americans have quite a lot of discipline. They sit before a call and they go, I'm going to make these 6 points in sequential order, and I'm going to make this, maybe bring it to life with some illustration. And sometimes I feel that the language of French gives you so much ability to meander that there's a lot of maybe not super relevance that comes into the story. And I think you have to check to make sure that you're telling anecdotes that reinforce your story, that illustrate your story, that bring it to life, all of those things. So maybe there's more discipline, I think, to it than is seen. Your delivery needs to be completely natural. But it doesn't hurt to have a little structure, even if it's just like 5 points you're going to make and the order you're going to make them in, and then let yourself be organic. But sometimes I find people say, oh, I've got 10 minutes. And by the 8th minute, they go, oh, shit, I haven't really started yet. You know, and you're like, well, don't let that happen, right? So you have a minute or two, you know, to get going, but then you need to be hitting the marks, and then, but bring it to life, really bring humanity to the story. Show me an example of something, like a use case, you know, where you go, you know, here's an example of how someone might use the product. Oh, I was talking to a customer the other day, and when we tried it this way, it worked really well because we got feedback like this. And so I think really illustrating, make sure you hit the big points, and then bring them to life, illustrate them.
It's very funny that you're talking about anecdotes. One of the big struggle we have in our job is that we get pitched all the time by people that give us way too much details, and especially details that have nothing to do with their current project. Like the biggest specialty of founders is to tell you the story of the X steps. Like a little bit, if you go on a date and your first conversation is everyone you dated in your life and it didn't work, and why, it will feel a little bit awful. And I don't know, like I felt that in America, naturally, you have this show and tell at school. You have this culture of telling a story. You have Hollywood, that is the biggest storytelling maker ever. How do you think it's possible to learn this kind of thing late, or is it something that if you don't have it as a kid, then it's too late?
No, of course you can learn it, and I mean I'm English, so I didn't do the show and tell thing either. But no, I mean we've actually, a part of our process, we often work with founders, and we'll give them a talk track for sort of how to bring ideas back to their company or to investors, or they'll tell us who they're talking about, who's the audience, and then we'll figure out a way to get into the story that's super relevant. I think know your audience also. Like, I mean, come on, like, don't tell me the 6 things that didn't work before, and so I'm a sad person. And that, you know, like, what is it? The accumulation of my experience that brought me here today, and it can be failures. It certainly can, but there have to be lessons from those failures. They can't simply be, oh yeah, I didn't know what else to do, so I did, right? So it's the accumulation of those failures. Maybe that's a beautiful story, but I think every step has to make it feel like you're on a journey towards the thing you're about to present. And sometimes people just go way off. And I'm gonna honestly, look, the mirror's there in the morning when you're brushing your teeth. So stop brushing your teeth for 5 minutes and try it out, you know. Write your 5 points, have a few little extra stories that you want to tell, make sure you hit them. And if you find yourself having difficulty telling a certain part of the story, then tell it a few times to a friend of yours. But I find it, I mean, it comes so naturally to us because that's all we do is storytelling, and some people call it media training, right? So the ability to tell a story so that in a short period of time and still be entertaining. I don't like media training because I can almost see a CEO that has media training because they're making all the points so right and so on point that I'm not interested. I think the opportunity is to bring your personality, but to learn how to hit the points, illustrate them through example and through culture, make it interesting, make it compounding, as you said, like I've got this experience, we tried the product, this doesn't work, but this did, so then we did this, and this is really interesting because this is the type of feedback we get. And suddenly I'm interested, okay, I get the journey. And so that compounding of experience and lessons learned and those things are what I'm assuming investors want to hear. They want to hear that, yeah, they've had a road, but along that road, they've learned a lot. And as they go forward, they'll continue. You know, it's not about being the most proficient, experienced CEO. It's about having a learning mindset. So one of the things I think you're teaching people is I'm the kind of founder, CEO, who has learned from my experiences and will continue to learn because the world isn't going to stop changing. So as soon as we start building the product or launching it, the world's going to change again. We're going to change again. So how are you going to adapt? Are you an adaptive CEO? Are you a founder that knows how to bring the product along as the world changes? So I think all of those things are things that you're trying to convince people with storytelling. Yeah.
And like, who is your favorite storyteller ever, and what did you learn from him? Like, what was your biggest? Who are you fan of?
Yeah, I actually just listened to Brian Chesky on a podcast for Axios talking about the travel industry and the future of the travel industry, which couldn't be a bigger topic right now, right? I mean, everybody's asking that question. It's super culturally relevant. And he was just making the points that it's never going to be the same again. You know, business travel will change, where people live and locate will change, how people consider holiday, where they think of home being. Maybe they have, you know, and Airbnb's business changes accordingly. You know, they're going to have longer rentals. They never did business travel that much anyway. Maybe people mix business and pleasure and go and live in a place because location doesn't matter as much. And it's, you know, it doesn't have to be a rich man's game. You can go and live in an Airbnb somewhere really cool and be there for a month. And that's the freedom that COVID can bring you. And so, of course, he had a thesis in his background, but he was telling the story of where travel was going without saying, I know where it's going. He was just saying, this is what we're seeing. He was quoting evidence. He was quoting smart people. And then, of course, Steve Jobs. I mean, who could say there was a better storyteller? It's been a little while, but for me, the big keynotes of the big product introductions. So if you're ever like scratching your head and you're kind of, I don't know how to tell this, you know, go back and have a look at how he did iPhone or how he did iPod, you know, or the iPad. You know, I remember the first words in the iPad was, we don't need a third device. I have a computer, I have a phone, I don't need another device. What do I need another device for? Right? Now, if we did need another device, it would have to be better at the 6 things we do every single day on those 2 devices, right? Or we agreed, and everyone's like, yeah, it'd have to be way better than the others. So then he goes on to go through every single one of those 6 and prove that the iPad is better in each case. So yeah, I mean, I think Steve's keynotes were the culmination of like a year's thinking. And, you know, they're all up there, and they're all, that some of them are just priceless. He tells a story about Think Different in like 1997. It's a very famous, it's not a keynote. He's just got funny long hair and jeans sitting in a funny presentation room.
It's one of my favorite videos. Yeah,
you remember that one? And it's one of I mean, they I'm sure they show that at like, you know, marketing class or Harvard MBA, even marketing or something. But it's, you know, what's a brand, and no one, you know, do people care about us, and how do we make a mark? So yeah, I think it's great.
I saw these videos the first time I was 16 years old, I think. And I still remember it. But that's one of the points. It's the power of stories, is how long a good story can be remembered. The same piece of information with a bad story, you forget it. But with a good story, I can give you a funny example. I'm teaching a chess to my niece, and she cannot remember how to put the piece at the beginning. And so I invented a little story. I told her the queen needs to be on her collar because she's coquette. She needs to always be on her collar because that's a fashion. The king needs to be next to her, and they need to be entertained. This is why they have the bishop. They need the horse to escape and the rock to protect. And now that she knows this story, she tells the story each time she puts the piece. And she's so happy to have a way. So stories are actually an incredible way of learning things. Like, Alice, what's your process to storytell things? Because we storytell so many things at the family. Like, do you have any secret, any mantra you use? Alice left. I think Alice's connection is not good. I'll come back to James.
you friend her away, I think. That's the question.
Yeah, yeah, because she kicked me out at the beginning, so now I got the power back.
Yeah, you got it back. Yeah, I'll be out soon. Don't worry. Let's see how I do. I mean, I would say one thing, Osama, which is I think just as a reflection of the type of work we're doing right now compared with a year ago, right? So
yeah,
because there tends to be some connection between who's getting funded and who wants to like suddenly get elevated and needs to bring in, some big storytellers. And, we're doing a ton of biotech, data and AI, SaaS business software, food and agriculture, like healthcare, climate, like all these things that have all leapt forward, right? I mean, biology, right? Think of biology and how it's, software ate the earth for 30 years and will continue, no doubt. But biology is the future, and its ability to biologically engineer just about anything is fundamentally changing healthcare. It's fundamentally changing food, agriculture, climate, the ability to, I feel like biology is really going to save us. I've been in the room with a lot of crazy scientists, biologists recently, and they've got me very convinced that biology is going to save us. And so if you think of all these new categories that were always there, I mean, they were bubbling, but they've suddenly become really hot. And I think storytelling, again, becomes super relevant because it's hard for you to say, this is, I know where the world is going a year from now in the middle of COVID. But what you can say is the opportunity of what I see in front of me, and the opportunity and where my product fits in that, and how the world appears to be moving. Like, what are the trends we're seeing? And I think you have to put context around your product now, because the lines of progress are all so intervarious. Some are speeding like crazy into, doing SPACs and like going public, like 3 years before we ever thought, and I'm being approached by, obviously everything like robotic cars and, moon landings, and I mean, just crazy stuff. And all of those are requiring incredible storytelling, particularly in the context of the fact that the world has changed so much. Is it like 2030 already? Did we miss 10 years? And wherever we were going a year ago, we're going somewhere else now. And so your story better be relevant, and it better not be the story from a year ago, because it's pretty sure we're changing.
I have a question on this. When I was a kid, the future was promising. Like when I was reading scientific books, blah blah. And then now, if you watch Netflix, anything that is related to the future is dystopian. Everything. Starting with this thing that everybody love and I hate, called Black Mirror.
Black Mirror.
Yeah, this TV show depressed me so much. It's and the most depressing thing is that this talented storyteller put a lot of power in dystopian stories. And so now the problem we have all in the startup community is that when we make promise about the future, we struggle to not sound dystopian. Because we have to fight this big dystopian invisible enemy that is in the mind of everyone. Yeah. Like, how do you overcome that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with you. I think in the cultural discourse, the vision of the future from sort of Terminator onward was robots taking over the world, like data and AI. Artificial intelligence. I mean, what sounds good about that? That sounds really scary. Where's the human being gone? I always feel like the role is to figure out the way in which humanity will benefit, and to talk to the opportunity and the advantages of humanity. I think technology on its own, again, Steve had that beautiful thing. Technology alone is not enough. It's only when mixed with the humanities that it makes your heart sing. And that was 35 years. It's not wrong today, meaning it's not data and AI that's going to solve. It's the stories that come out of the data. It's the HI, the human intelligence, that is going to make the most of the data. It's the human interaction. I think technology left alone will create, commoditization, reduce friction, make everything simple, right? But it won't make anything that attractive or sticky or warm or human. Humans go after humans. The creator economy, right, is this whole new thing we keep reading about, that the attention economy is moving out and the creator economy is moving in. People want to see people. Clubhouse, people want to talk to people, no matter what. And so I think you have to find a role that your technology isn't just simply about replacing or pushing out humanity. And that, because so many times you can say, well, let's think about robotics. Are they good? Is it bad? Is a human supposed to do menial tasks? Is the AI that can do your bookkeeping, is that good or is that bad for the bookkeeper, right? Well, ultimately, the bookkeeper will be retrained and do something else. But I think, and they're not simple areas, because it's clear that technology will push humanity into other things. But I'm a future optimist, like yourself. I believe humanity will find other things to do, to learn, as long as you don't think you're going to have one job for the rest of your life. You need to constantly relearn, retrain, get new skills, and get engaged. And I think as a founder, you have to make sure that your technology always has a human side to its story. And so that dystopian version doesn't come to mind. And I think you have to live up to it too. It's not just your story, but the reality. Where does the human come in?
Yeah.
When does the human come in, and when does the environment as well come in? Because there's a new narrative today, taking into account really profoundly the planet. This was not possible before. I mean, this was not even something we were taking into account in any narrative. This is taken very seriously today, as if technology was fighting against Earth or something like that. One would have to win against the other, which is not all true. I mean, we see in all startups that they are all now surfing the green wave profoundly.
Yeah.
Like all of their pitches take into account and the environment.
Yeah. And by the way, that's the dark side of storytelling, is that in this world we give so much premium to people that are good at storytelling, that you see all these companies that are greenwashing with incredibly beautiful story, but not delivering on it. Yes. And as much as technology has dark side, storytelling has this dark side, is that it can be used for good or it can be used to totally mislead people.
Yeah, I mean, big oil, big pharma, they all have hired the big agencies to do beautiful, green, happy, smiley, wild meadow ads, and all they're doing
and they are good.
They make you feel nice, and you're like, oh, they mustn't be that bad. Whereas actually they're pumping carbon into the atmosphere, or they're causing someone to get hooked on Oxycontin or whatever they're doing, but they're, so no, the greenwashing of large companies, but it is interesting though. I do continue to be optimistic, like even in healthcare, where I think big pharma is just beginning to, when you think about bioengineering, you think about how quickly they created the vaccine, and let's not kid ourselves. It wasn't big pharma that cracked the vaccine. It was the small life sciences biotechs that cracked the vaccine, and then the big guys came in and said, okay, great, yeah, let's co-name it, shall we, or whatever they did. But it was the little guys that did it. It wasn't the big guys are trying to stop change because they make money by slowing everything down. But the new guys, and so that's why I love what we do, because I think we bring change. And I think that over time, even things like big pharma and sustainability, both big oil and big pharma, will be fundamentally impacted by biological engineering, where you can create drugs that we don't have to pay you back for 10 years of R&D, because we engineered our way to it within a year or so, which is what they just did with the vaccine. And I don't pretend to be an expert, but someone is an expert told me it used to be a 1 in 10 game, and you would have to do 1,000 studies. And now it's like a 1 in 2 or a 1 in 3 game. Well, the prices have to come down so that medicine is available and people can afford it. That's the evil of it. Or, big oil or big carbon needs to recognize its responsibility and either pay for it or have to subsidize the future. Because I think sustainability, there's a whole new generation of people for whom it's non-negotiable. Alice, as you were saying, people are looking for brands now to have a good, you have to have a good answer to that question. What are you doing in that regard? How are you helping in that conversation? So.
I have a question from Seish. Seish is asking to you, James, how do you identify visionaries? And as a designer, how to partner up with them, like Nike and Apple and Media Art Labs?
Those are two of those. Those are the two amazing examples. Because they're very specific, right? Those are partnerships that were built over 20, 30 years. Very large, incredible multi-level companies that have a very innovative multi-product companies that have relationships with an agency, and an agency gets built a capability around them. My job was always to try and get people to come work at Media Arts Lab to work on Apple. And of course, that was much easier than getting everyone to come work on Shell, right? Or that's not very fair to pick on big oil, but to come work on a bank, or because Apple is an innovation company and it had so many different products that. So I think actually those two models are quite hard to replicate, because they require an absolutely unique brand and company led by a unique founder with a unique role in culture, so that you can attract the top level of talent. You can create companies like that don't attract the top level of talent for a not very interesting company, but that's just not very compelling. So you end up obviously with the more of an agency model where people do various things because they don't want to just work on something that's not very compelling. But I'm not sure whether I answered the question.
Yeah, actually, you answered. I have a very practical question because it's something we are facing too as a family, and I will be curious to have your opinion on this. In your work, for most of your career, it was about being in a room with someone, feeling the energy, trying to get something out of him that was more coming from what he doesn't say than what he says aloud.
Yeah.
And now we are all stuck on Zoom all day long, trying to emulate the same. Do you think it's possible? Are you succeeding at that, or for you it's just a transition period and you just wait that you can be in a room with people again?
I definitely look forward to being in rooms with people again. So, Osama, you and I have never met in physical life, although I feel like I know you because we've coached many times. And Alice, you and I have never met in it, and I'm sure we would have a great time. So we must do that soon. When you're both back in Paris, let me know. No, I mean, if I speak personally for the work that we do, if you asked me a year ago, in fact, we produced a little booklet. So we have a beautiful little craftsman house in Venice Beach, 2 craftsman houses. And we used to do the sessions. One was for the team and the other one was for people coming in and out. And we'd have all the walls full of ideas, and we'd walk from one room to the next and really orchestrate, and then have a lovely lunch on the terrace in the sunshine, and then come back and and finish and have rosé at the end of the day. And that was like the day, and it was kind of beautifully done. We didn't have a castle, but we had a craftsman house. It was our version of the castle. And it was beautiful. And we produced this beautiful little booklet that was beautifully illustrated. It was all about how important it is to come to the house. And that all got finished like February 25th. And we were like, okay, we're ready to market this. And then, I think that was like the first COVID example or something. And so we spent, what was that, February? So March, April were awful. Everybody canceled, obviously. And everyone was like, well, I don't want to do it online, so I'll wait, okay. Because we'd made such a big deal that they had to come to the room, and then May, most of those people said, okay, let's do it anyway. So we filled up again in May and June. And then by July, August, and since September, we now are sort of booked 2 to 3 months in advance. And I think part of the beauty, the benefit of this, and I'd love some kind of a hybrid, to be honest. Like, I'd love to carry on the efficiency of working like this, living wherever you want, but then just at some point I come to Paris and we meet together and we have a glass of wine, or I miss that part. So I don't want it all to be virtual, because I think that's very inhumane, back to the humanity part. But there are incredible advantages to it. The speed of engagement, the focus you can get to. We used to ask people to come to Venice, California to do the sessions with us. Well, that chopped off 60% of the people, because they were like, well, we just can't, we're too busy. But can you give me 2 hours on a session? Yeah, sure, no problem. Between 3 and 5, let's go. So we get a lot done. We're able to sprint much quicker, get people very focused. We're not, doing other things. And we use some visual tools to get people interested. So we use this thing called whiteboard, which is, we kind of zoom out and it looks like a board, as if you're on, this is the wall if you're in our house. And then we zoom in to each chart. And then sometimes we zoom out so that you know where you are. And it's not just this constant, like a PowerPoint of 150 pages. So we try to replicate, and me and my partners are so used to shouting at each other in the room. We shout at each other on Zooms, and we create an atmosphere in the meeting of like, hey, Fat, what do you think? What do you think? No, yeah, but what do you think of that? We're not like McKinsey, with our, whatever, I don't know what McKinsey are like, but whatever. We're not very formal, where we try to create the atmosphere as if you're in the room. The energy of like, okay, this is going to be super challenging, but we really need to hear your thoughts. Okay, I haven't heard any thoughts yet. This one. Okay, let's go back. Stephen, this one. What do you guys think? Do you like this or do you like that? and I make them contribute. And as soon as that starts, then they never stop, and you can't shut them up. But you have to do some things to encourage participation in the EQ that you bring to being on this technology. And then once you break the back of that, I was saying, Osama, I've actually found it unbelievably productive. We're doing way more bigger, more interesting projects from all over the world. So it's actually open for us, and you know, of course, not every business, but for us. But I just hope and I wish that we could mix it up a little bit. But we won't go all the way back. You know, there will be this, my guess is like, you know, 1 in 3 meetings you'll do, or 1 in 5 you'll do in real life, or maybe 1 in 10, I don't know. But I want to meet people. Every week I want to meet people for a few hours every day, or for 1 day every week, or something. But so the total absence of it is not healthy. But there's been a lot of advantage to it, and you get a lot done. You really do. You move fast. You get people's focus, you know? Like, I'm always like, you switch your camera off. Can you switch your camera back on, please? And we just wait. Okay, great. All right, let's get back into it. So, because everyone has to be on it. Like, would you know, you're paying us a bunch of money for us to be focused on your idea. We need your iteration. So we're all about, here's an idea. Do you like that? What do you think? Oh, no, I don't. And then people start typing in the side, and we go, okay, what about that? And what about that? No. Okay, all right. Let's stop talking about that. Here's another thing. You ready? We're going to talk about this now. And so you, a little bit with the way that you gesticulate and use your language, it's not, if it's, you're dead. So we go, whoa, whoa, right? And we try to gradiate to replicate some of the human emotion that you get when you're in a room together. I don't know what you guys do. You guys do too.
Yeah.
You find it?
We did the same. I mean, I never felt so productive. I don't know on your side, Usama, but since we've been accompanying the startup online, really, I've been interacting with them, and I really felt, okay, I had to create those variations, creating emotions, like insisting on emotions. But as I felt like I needed to overcome the distance, I insisted on spending time on Zoom, online, etc. And I felt like I have 30 new best friends, okay? Really, like in French, we say prendre la confiance. I really have taken confidence, you know, I've grabbed it, like, and I feel really connected with them because I allowed myself to create this connection because of the distance. But now I feel that it's even more, I mean, it's stronger than the way I used to work before, in terms of results, in terms of connection with the companies. And I really want to keep that intensity. And of course, I need to see people in real life, but I'm not sure I need to see the people I'm working with in real life. I need to see people in real life, but I can work with the startup in real life.
One of the things
online, I mean.
Yeah, one of the things that COVID made me so happy about is that I can dissociate between the people I work with and the people I need to see. And this dissociation is really cool, actually, because I can enjoy a higher diversity of people. But
I'm taking it personally because we haven't met with Osama for like 6 months.
Yeah, take it personally, it's fine. What can I tell you? But on the other side, yes, I agree with you, Alice and James. Much more productive, but I never felt that tired. For someone like me that had so much energy and it was really easy for me to manage my energy, I feel exhausted. And I feel for the first time in my life exhausted. I felt, actually not the first time, just when I was in first year university, I felt like that. I was going to bed tired and I wake up tired. And it was really hard for me to work for the first time in my life because in school before it was really just going to school. And then in this first years of university, for the first time, I had to really work. I was like, what the fuck is that? How people do that? And it feels a little bit the same with remote because with remote, it's really, really hard to stick to your agenda. You multitask much more. For example, I take much more meetings out of agenda that I ever took. When you are in office, you take meeting in your agenda. No one can pop up in your office and be like, hey. But on Slack, WhatsApp, and it's hard to say no to people. So yeah, the energy part is complicated, I think. But a mix will be cool.
Yeah. No, I'm optimistic. My tiredest moment was working with Steve Jobs for 11 years. I went to bed tired, woke up tired, and was tired for 11 years. But that was just because he might call at any moment and ask some crazy question. So,
yeah, really? It was like that?
Yeah. Oh, around the clock. Yeah, actually, I think I remember one time on a Sunday morning, my wife took a call at 7 in the morning and she said, Steve, would you mind not? It's Sunday, so can we do like 8 on a Sunday? And she said, oh yeah, sorry. So maybe it was 6, I can't remember. Anyway, and we'd gone to bed. We only gone to bed a couple of hours before, so we were like, okay, come on, you can't call at this time. Yeah, he was very relentless. But as are many of the founders that make it, they're unbelievably relentless. So yeah, that's certainly a characteristic that's necessary. But yeah, I do agree that the virtual thing doesn't create a physical block to your agenda or your meeting of people. So everyone, it's almost as if everyone knows you can find a way to see them. So they're kind of like, well, I know you have a WhatsApp and I know you have Slack and I know you could Zoom me, and you could slip me in, if I'm sure one of your meetings is going to end early or whatever. Whereas when it's a physical thing, you wouldn't close a meeting early, you'd wait, someone would be waiting outside, you say, very nice to meet you, and they would leave, and right. And whereas it's now fungible, as they say.
Yeah, it's very fungible. Yeah. Do you see a big difference in the kind of entrepreneurs you interact with? Because you worked 11 years with Steve Jobs at the time where entrepreneurship was not a thing. And when you left Apple, it kind of the time where entrepreneurship became fashionable, basically.
Yeah.
So you have been on that wave. You work with Evan. I think Evan was your first client after Apple, or?
Yeah, but Brian at Airbnb and then Evan at
Brian at Airbnb, yeah. So did you see a transformation in the nature of entrepreneur? Like, do you see something very different from what you saw on the last 20 years? Or is it the same people in a different space?
It's maybe a little different between the US and Europe. So I see some different types of founders here. I definitely notice a fairly big change, and I think it's a good change, and maybe it's just the type of work we're doing, but like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I felt like we were using data to help us like get the shopping to us quicker. Or we're using data to figure out what eye color, lipstick matching thing we were, and whereas, right, which, and I'm not trying to belittle those businesses, but they seemed like they were like convenience in the pursuit of what? Saving 2.1 seconds, And I just sort of feel like COVID and sort of we've been confronted by nature, right? We've been confronted by a sort of existential threat. We've been confronted by, and I feel like I see so many more pitches for there has to be a better way. We can use data in a really good way to make companies work better so people can use their time better and they can be more productive, or we can use the benefits of technology, biology, or data, or I keep using those two examples because they seem so like almost fundamental to me. Like everything is either data based, right? Because data is stories. And if you don't know the data of your company, you don't know the story of your company, and you can create the stories of your company and the data can. So, and then biology seems to be about the sort of everything else from medicine to biotech to and is also hugely data driven. And those two fundamental things for me, and maybe it's just our evolution where we're lucky enough to be working on bigger projects. But I find that people are trying to crack the big questions now, which is really encouraging. You know, like, I don't know, like Alan, you know, speaking of a French company with JC Allen, and of course it doesn't get bigger than trying to solve, right? Trying to figure out how healthcare can be more patient focused. So I like that, you know, and even moving away from social media to, I don't know. I feel like the topics that tech is trying to solve, I'm not trying to say everyone's trying to save the world, but I feel like they're of a scale of importance that's gone up from can we get it delivered 30 seconds quicker or match your eye color 30 seconds quicker? And those are the ones that will impact the world. And so, yeah, I think there's a sort of a realization gone on with the general public in culture that things are changing and can change, and resistance to change is, you know, I mean, you see some portion of the country just not able to deal with it, and some portion of the country encouraging it, you know, and you know, obviously in the US, that's incredibly dramatic with what Trump stood for and sort of standing against, and 38% of the country thought he was, you know, making sense. And thankfully most of the rest of the country didn't. But the speed of that change, the technology that founders are working on seem to be trying to really resolve human beings, like some of their existential, you know, like, how do we get things done better? And so I'm always optimistic. You know, people ask me, like, do you think Steve would be upset by what the phone did to everybody? Like, you know, good, bad, and different, you know, and I don't have a very good answer for the question, but I mean, he would definitely have been into all of the sort of, you know, parental controls and the try to control, like, help, encourage, and monitor, but that mostly the good outweighs the bad, and that mostly the opportunities that this platform of technology provides allows people to leap forward and say, oh, what, man, wow, yeah. You know, someone said something the other day, and I think Steve said something similar to this, and this is maybe an interesting thing for your entrepreneurs. I think he said, his quote was, when you realize the world is made by people no more smart than yourself, you realize you can change things. Now, I always thought that was a weird quote coming from him, because he's really, really smart, one of the smartest guys in the world. So I don't know how many people are smarter than him, but I think the realization is, when you look at a category as it is today, and you just assume, you ask fundamental questions about why is it that way? Very simple questions. Why does the payer go to the thing, and then there's a surcharge, and then you go around the corner, and then you get added, and then you buy it? Like, how do I figure out that, you know, a more productive way in which that can happen? And my assumption always is that if a more productive way is to happen, then resources can be applied elsewhere to other things, because that was inefficiency, right? And also, and as long as humans are thought of in that equation, right, that it's not just economic progress, but human progress. So back to my point about being good for humanity. If technology can be pushed in the direction of always considering the human and addressing their needs, and oftentimes that is economic progress in the pursuit of human progress, but not economic progress simply on its own without consideration for the human. And the brands that I hope, most of the brands we work with stand for that, you know, and they you know, they're brands that you like for a reason, right? That you like them because they share your values. And there's other brands that, you know, we probably wouldn't work with.
As my co-founder Nicholas wrote in an article, entrepreneurship is the new politics. And I guess that's why also storytelling is so important, because you need to embark people. You need to have the people on your side, so they can tell your story, but they can also believe in you to run your campaigns in a way, you know. And for me, they are really converging, entrepreneurship and politics. Well, I could stay here and listen to you, James, all life long. But it's already the end.
That sounds like a prison sentence, but anyway.
No. Yes, put me the curse. No, it's good. It's good. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed. How did you feel, James?
It was great. I thought it was fun. Hopefully there are a couple of other people that found it interesting too, not just us.
Yeah, we'll do it every week. Actually, we're just trying new things, to create some interesting content for our community of entrepreneurs. We've been trying to talk the 5 of us. Doesn't work. When you take the 5 directors of the family, we talk each other so too often, so we're bored by each other when we are.
Are you bored? I'm like the fluffer. I'm like make everybody happy. I got it. The fluffer's signing out now.
Yeah, we should in good company with the fluffer. Like that should be the name. That can be an incredible storytelling, Alice. So we need a fluffer in our relationship to. Yeah, 8 years is long. I understand. Everybody needs a fluffer at some times.
That's a great place to end.
Yeah,
thank you, James. It was amazing.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
great
really
to see you guys.
Really inspiring.
And
everybody. Sorry, everybody, just for the community who is watching right now, we're going to try to have a guest every week, actually, and to just have 2 members of the family interviewing that guest.
Yeah. And James, thank you for everything today. And just a last word on what you said. There is a big scale of the subject in startups, but also this COVID is an opportunity to get people from very different geography to try to be entrepreneurs too. And the fact that you moved to Brussels and a lot of people from California are moving all around the world, it's one of the biggest opportunities ever to spread the knowledge. So thank you very much for this time with us. Thank you very much for giving back with some of our portfolio startups. We are very excited to work with you and thank you for everything.
You're welcome. I'm looking forward to watching the next one where the next fluffer comes along and see what they say.
This fluffer thing is going to be a real thing. See you guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Alice.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.